we saw what happened in the United States in terms of the space race. In 10 years, the United States went from 0 to landing a man on the moon. That same kind of call to adventure is the call to adventure that I'm issuing in this work. I've always been an environmentalist, long before I knew the meaning of the word. It was natural for me just to care for nature and to immerse myself in nature. And I had a long history with my parents of when I was growing up, I would bring herd animals home, and they started to put limits on size and whether it slithered. And there's one occasion I was walking a local farmer's mare. This was a Clydesdale mare who had gone lame. And I walked along the bottom of my driveway, and the gleam of wickedness came over, and so I walked up with this huge Clydesdale mare. My parents came out thinking I was bringing home another pet, so I got to the top of the driveway and said, "Only kidding," and walked away. So the world of nature has been a natural refuge for me always. So when things started to really turn down in a dramatic way, although it's been happening for a much longer time than we care to envisage about the Earth, I then used my professional training and also my spiritual training as a Buddhist teacher. I also spent time in India, where I was ordained as a Dharma teacher and a guru in India. And all these different threads from India, from Buddhism, from Native America, from my professional work as an anthropologist, these have brought me to a place of advocacy for the Earth in order that humanity as a species may retain a niche upon it. And that's what brings me here today. I pursued my studies at London University and also at Oxford University before going to Canada. In Canada, I've really found a home. I like the looseness. I like the easygoing, laid-back nature. In Canada, I worked a great deal with Native American cultures, and they left a very deep impression on me, particularly with respect to the Earth, Mother Earth, the ceremonies, the respect, the balance. And although I worked with them on land claims, they also worked with me in terms of training me in their medicines and their customs and ceremonies. Mm-hmm. So that's another very important influence on me. Joseph Campbell's work on mythology was a great influence on me. James Lovelock was very influential in the creation of my latest work, which is Failsafe, Gaia, Science and the Buddha. And his views were quite fascinating, especially when you recognize the origins. In the 60s, he worked for NASA to create a model for what would viable life on Mars look like. And he came up with a radical idea, radical for science in the 60s and 70s, that life and environment were two sides of the same coin. He later on applied this perspective to examining Earth processes. And on a walk in Devon with his novelist friend William Golding suggested to him that he call this new idea after the Greek goddess Gaia. So the Gaia hypothesis was created in 1979. This is the first paper that he and Lynn Margulis, the American biologist, wrote. And in this book, he took a view of the Earth as a living system. And this is very hard for science to accept, because as a living system, what Lovelock was arguing was that the Earth created the conditions in order to support life. And this was a sort of a teleology that science couldn't accept. Right. So he was not so much dismissed by the scientific community, he was ignored. And the journey of science, of Gaia as a scientific concept, was quite lumpy. in that it was trashed in 1988 by the American Geophysical Union. But at the same time, Gaia as a metaphor had entered public discourse with the New Age movement, the feminists, the environmentalists, and so there was a kind of a general knowledge about Gaia as a living planet that had nothing to do with Gaia as a scientific concept. Increasingly in the latter part of the 20th century, it was seen that many of the things that Lovelock was talking about were in fact coming to pass and could only be explained in terms of his hypothesis, which was steadily being refined. And in 2001, at a conference in Amsterdam, 1,000 geophysicists and other earth scientists signed the Amsterdam Declaration.